stabbed 14 times, including 7 wounds to his back, 4 to his torso, 2 to the back of his head, and 1 to the left side of his face.
Rapper Tory Lanez is fighting for his life after a brutal prison attack left him in critical condition. Sources say if guards had arrived even a minute later, the outcome could have been fatal. New details are emerging, and now a doctor has revealed shocking information about Lanez's health things no one saw coming. Tory Lanez in critical condition. After prison stabbing, the hip-hop world was stunned when news broke about a violent attack on Tory Lanez inside a California prison on May 12, 2025. What began as a normal morning in the yard quickly turned into a fight for survival when Lanez's real name, Daystar Peterson, was jumped and stabbed 14 times by another inmate at California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. The ambush went down around 7:20 a.m., prompting an immediate lockdown as prison staff rushed to save the rapper's life. The seriousness of the attack became even more apparent once official reports revealed the specific locations of the stab wounds, details that paint a far more harrowing picture of what really went down. He took 7 stab wounds to the back, 4 to the torso, 2 to the back of the head, and 1 across the left side of his face. This wasn't just some random prison scuffle. It looked like a calculated hit with real intent to cause serious. The weapon used was a handmade shank, crafted from improvised materials, standard issue when it comes to prison violence. What made this situation life-threatening wasn't just the number of stab wounds, but the devastating medical complications. Multiple punctures to Lanez's chest caused both lungs to collapse, a critical condition known as bilateral pneumothorax. Medical experts explain that when air escapes into the space between the lungs and the chest wall, it creates pressure that prevents the lungs from expanding properly. When both lungs collapse at once, it becomes nearly impossible for the body to keep up oxygen flow, a truly life or death scenario. Prison medical staff wasted no time. As soon as they saw Lanez struggling to breathe, they activated emergency protocols, administered first aid, and rushed him to a civilian hospital in Bakersfield. Doctors placed him on a ventilator to stabilize his breathing while working to treat the collapsed lungs and assess internal damage from the stabbing. For an artist whose livelihood depends on his breath control and voice, the risk of long-term respiratory damage sparks serious concern about whether Lanez will ever be the same behind a mic. At approximately 7:20 a.m. today, Daystar Peterson, BWO168, was attacked by another inmate in a housing unit at the California Correctional Institution CCI in Tehachapi. Staff immediately responded, initiated 911, and began administering medical aid. Peterson was subsequently transported to an outside medical facility for further treatment. But officials have stayed tight-lipped about who carried out the attack or what the motive might have been. Authorities say the investigation is still active and ongoing in coordination with the Kern County District Attorney's Office and the Office of the Inspector General. The assault has raised serious questions about prison security. How did another inmate get their hands on a weapon capable of inflicting such damage? Was Lanez specifically targeted? If so, why? These questions remain unanswered as investigators work to piece together what led to the violent confrontation. Lanez's attorney Jose Baez has been on top of the situation, staying in close contact with prison officials to get accurate updates on his client's condition and the events that led up to the attack. While Baez hasn't shared many details publicly, he did give a brief statement to TMZ, describing Tory as upbeat, recovering, and expected to make a full recovery. He emphasized that despite the serious nature of the injuries, Lanez is a fighter. As news of the stabbing broke, social media lit up with messages of support from fans and peers. Despite the controversy surrounding Lanez, especially the fallout from the Megan Thee Stallion shooting case, many expressed shock and concern over the brutality of the attack and wished him a speedy recovery. The incident also sparked broader conversations about the harsh realities of prison life, especially for high-profile inmates. Fame doesn't offer protection behind bars. And even well-known figures can become targets. Updates from Lanez's team have given his supporters hope. A statement posted to his verified Instagram account confirmed the details. Tory was stabbed 14 times, 7 times in the back, 4 in the torso, twice in the back of the head. and once on the left side of his face. The attack caused both of his lungs to collapse, requiring emergency intervention and life support. Fortunately, his condition has since improved. Tory is now breathing on his own. Though he remains in pain, he's talking, alert, and in good spirits. The Post says he's deeply thankful to God for pulling through. Given the severity of his injuries, this progress is seen as a major win in his road to recovery. Medical professionals familiar with collapsed lung cases say Tory's current condition suggests doctors were successful in reinflating both lungs, though the healing process is far from over. Recovery from such trauma is just beginning. Of the 14 stab wounds brings its own set of complications, risks of infection, permanent scarring, and potential damage to surrounding organs or tissues, depending on how deep the wounds went and what they struck. For Lanez, the road to recovery won't be quick or easy. Trauma specialists say that healing from such serious injuries usually takes months, not weeks. The first few weeks are especially critical, as doctors focus on preventing complications like infection, fluid buildup, or internal bleeding. The emphasis shifts to regaining strength, particularly in the lungs, which were severely compromised. While it's encouraging that he's talking normally and staying mentally strong, the physical and emotional toll of such a violent attack won't disappear overnight. The mental scars may last long after the physical wounds fade. Meanwhile, the investigation into the attack is still underway. Prison officials are combing through security footage, interviewing witnesses, and reviewing evidence to piece together exactly what happened in the yard that morning. Depending on what they uncover, the attacker could face new charges, and the facility might be forced to reevaluate its security protocols to prevent similar incidents in the future. Lanez remains under medical supervision as he recovers, all while serving his 10-year sentence for the shooting conviction that landed him behind bars. This stabbing marks yet another intense chapter in what's already been a turbulent journey, and it leaves many wondering what lies ahead for the embattled rapper. Despite the controversy surrounding him, the near-fatal attack sparked a wave of support from fans and even some in the music industry. Social media quickly lit up with messages of prayer and encouragement, with hashtags like #PrayForTory and #StayStrongTory trending across platforms. Fans shared updates on his condition, favorite moments from his music career, and heartfelt hopes for his recovery. Even some people who had previously criticized Lanez for his involvement in the Megan Thee Stallion case expressed genuine concern, showing how extreme circumstances can momentarily shift public perception. Life behind bars is harsh, and this violent incident has reminded many just how real the dangers can be, even for a high-profile figure like Tory Lanez. Sometimes extreme situations transcend even the deepest beefs. In the wake of the attack, several figures in the music industry have spoken out. It all went down on a summer night in 2020, a night that should have been just another turn-up in the Hollywood Hills. On July 12, 2020, following a pool party at Kylie Jenner's house, Tory Lanez, Megan Thee Stallion, real name Megan Pete.
So I get out the car and it's like everything happens so fast. And all I hear was a man screaming, he said, "Dance, bitch." He started shooting.
What happened next would dominate headlines, spark endless debate across social media, and ultimately lead to one of the most polarizing criminal trials in recent music history. According to Megan's testimony, as she walked away from the SUV, that night Lanez shouted, "Dance, bitch," for firing a gun at her feet. The shot struck both of her feet, causing her to collapse in the street, bleeding. Megan later underwent surgery to remove bullet fragments and has since spoken about the lasting nerve damage and trauma the incident caused. The chaos didn't stop there. When police responded to reports of gunfire and pulled over the vehicle, the situation could have escalated further. At the time, Megan told authorities she had cut her feet on broken glass, a claim she later said was a deliberate lie, made out of fear. The country was still reeling from the murder of George Floyd just weeks earlier, and tensions between law enforcement and the Black community were running high. Megan later explained that she was afraid for everyone in the car, especially Lanez, who as a Black man could have easily ended up dead if officers knew there was a firearm involved.
shoot me and kill me.
Lanez was initially arrested that night on a charge of carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle and was released shortly after posting $35,000 bail. Combined, the charges carried a potential sentence of over 22 years in prison. Lanez pleaded not guilty on November 18, 2020. The trial finally began on December 5, 2022. Multiple delays. Over the course of 9 intense days, the jury heard testimony from several witnesses, including Megan herself. She detailed not only the physical pain from the shooting, but also the emotional devastation that followed. She spoke about the online hate, the loss of friendships, and the toll on her mental health, saying at one point, "I wish he would have just shot and killed me if I knew I was going to have to go through this kind of torture."
I just stood here in this Los Angeles County and witnessed the worst miscarriage of justice that this world has ever seen.
Kelsey Harris, Megan's former friend who was present during the shooting, took the stand under immunity and gave testimony that came off as hesitant and at times inconsistent. However, prosecutors countered this by playing a prior recorded interview where Harris clearly identified Lanez as the shooter. The jury returned its verdict on December 23, 2022, guilty on all 3 felony charges. The courtroom erupted, with Lanez's father creating a scene, angrily denouncing the verdict and calling the outcome a miscarriage of justice.
I never put my hands on anybody. I never raised my voice too loud. Like, this is one of the times that, like, it shouldn't have got this crazy.
On August 8, 2023, Judge David Hereford sentenced Tory Lanez to 10 years in prison. Internet clout. But by the summer of 2020, that bond would unravel in the most dramatic and public way possible, with their names forever linked in a case that shook the culture and forced tough conversations about accountability, fame, and the treatment of Black women in the spotlight.
So we'll never know the truth until it comes out in court.
The true nature of Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion's relationship during that time remains a topic of debate, with conflicting accounts depending on who's telling the story. In a 2022 interview with Gayle King, Megan firmly denied having a sexual relationship with Lanez. Her response at the time was direct and left little room for interpretation. However, in her later documentary, Megan Thee Stallion, in her words, she revised that statement, admitting they had hooked up once, maybe twice, during what she described as a drunk night. She explained that her earlier denial stemmed from feeling uncomfortable being asked about intimate details on national television, especially amid the intense public scrutiny surrounding the case. She made it clear that she wasn't trying to lie, rather trying to protect her privacy. Tory Lanez, meanwhile,